If you're a guitar player, you're probably familiar with this sound. But perhaps you haven't given it much thought. Hi, my name is not important. Nothing I will say in this video is really that important. But if you decide you want to stick around anyway, perhaps you'd be curious to know that I gave myself a challenge. It goes something like this.
Can a mediocre musician make music with the open string chord?
The open what now? This sound. Were you not paying attention earlier? All open strings played together in standard tuning. I thought it'd be a pretty interesting challenge to see if I can somehow turn the sound of strumming all open strings at once into something that resembles music or something that sounds musical, but my prediction is that it might be disastrous or sound pretty forced at least, but we shall see. Oh wait, before we start, some quick rules. Essentially, there's only one rule. I have to use the chord the way it is on guitar, meaning I have to play the notes E, A, D, G, B, and E in that order as one part of the progression or the composition. Other than that, I can pretty much do whatever. Now, in order to figure out where to put this chord or what to do with it, let's try to figure out what to call this chord or how to approach composing with it. As we can see here pretty quickly, it contains an E minor triad, the famous Nothing Else Matters opening. But it also contains a D and an A in slightly awkward spots. Now, if we add the D to our triad, we get an E minor 7 chord since the D is the 7th note of the E minor scale, so let's take it from there. That covers 5 of our 6 strings. Now we just have to find room for the A note somewhere. It so happens that the A is the 4th note of the scale, so I'm just going to call this chord in this particular voicing an E minor 7 add 4 chord. I don't know if that's a thing, but you know what I mean by that? I know what I mean by that, so let's move on. My idea was to utilize the chord in some sort of chromatic movement, and I figured since I have both a D and an E within reach on the D string, that will have to do. I'm thinking I can move from the open D to D sharp and then resolve on the E. That would give me my open add 4 chord, and then something that I think would be called an E minor major 7 chord, but I'm not entirely sure. And then I will end on E minor. That will hopefully give me some nice movement. The problem is then how I incorporate that into something that resembles a workable chord progression. Keep in mind here, I don't have a musical ear, so I need to work my way around things a bit. I could pick something simple like E minor, C major, G major, D major, back to E minor maybe. That way it would be mostly diatonic, meaning within the key, except for that D sharp in my chromatic movement. And since I'm already leaving my key slightly, I might as well add another note that doesn't belong, just to extend my chromatic line. I'm thinking if I add a C sharp on the D chord, it would not only give me a D major 7 chord, but it would create more movement. The issue now is obviously that I can't play that voicing on the guitar because, well, the lowest note on the open D string is a D, so I don't have access to the C sharp. So the solution was to add an organ to flesh out the voicing a bit. It's not cheating since the chord on the guitar stays exactly the same. Okay? You're cheating. I'm not cheating. Let's listen to what it sounds like. Only slightly less bad than I thought. Now I'm thinking I want to add something that goes against that chromatic movement. So let's do that. Let's add a piano. I don't think that really worked. It sounds like introducing something new or like the beginning of a new part or something. It doesn't sound like an ending. It sounds kind of weird, I think. Let's double it. I think I like that. It turned out better than I thought anyways. It's not great. I know it's not great, but It's not as bad as I thought. I must admit, this whole challenge / experiment made me a little curious. What if I do the same thing, use the same notes, but allow myself to change the voicing? Like this. Let's call it E minor 7 at 11. Because not only does it rhyme, but this time the fourth is at the top of the chord instead of near the bottom, which makes it an add 11 chord, I think. It's gotta be sort of correct anyway. And if not, someone somewhere will be mad, but you know what I mean. It sounds like this on piano with some delay on it. And now let's add a dark pad choir-ish thing to it for texture. And some quick drums. And some bass. Now let's try that in a musical context. So let's do E minor obviously to A minor to, let's do B minor and back to E minor to try a totally different route than before. What do you think? I must say I'm a little surprised I sort of made that work, I think.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Putting limitations on yourself can be such a great way to discover new things and new ideas and think in new ways, and especially if we find ourselves stuck in a rut and just resorting to the same old scales, patterns, chord progressions, exercises, scales, guitar sounds, what have you. And just a great way to step out of that comfort zone and just find a new way forward or find new ideas that we would never conceive of before. And this was certainly outside of my comfort zone. I also forgot to mention that I gave myself a time restriction for the initial example. I realized I probably should have included that in the rules or made that clear, explicitly clear from the beginning, but I also realized I have a lot left to learn about telling a compelling story in video format. Or any format. But this was great fun and well worth it, and as always, thank you for watching, stay safe out there, and bye-bye. Oh yeah, the time restriction I gave myself was 20 minutes to come up with the initial progression. I don't know how you compose, but for me that's not a lot of time to sort of process everything and try stuff out and just kind of figure it out in my head. But the reason I gave myself this sort of pretty limited time frame was that I didn't want to overthink it. I wanted to commit and move forward on instinct. And also, I don't have unlimited time to make these videos, so that was another reason for that. And I think it kind of worked. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and bye-bye for real.
If time is money, and money is time, what are you gonna spend your money on? You can't just buy more time. It seems to me, money is nothing without time. It seems to me, money is nothing.